Hi, Alicia here, and in this section, we're going to talk about cultural adjustment and identity abroad. So in this graph here, it'll start to give you an idea of how some different people might experience feeling different cultural shifts or cultural adjustment while they're abroad. You may have heard of the term culture shock. We don't really like to use that term because it's not always this really shocking and jarring experience. It can just feel more like adjustments or different things that are happening, feeling really good one day and not feeling as great the next day. So you'll see here these different curves. There's multiple ones, so it just shows that everyone feels this in different ways. You may get there and everything is great. It's the most wonderful thing you've ever experienced. You are loving life in this new country. And then a weekend, you just had a really hard day. You're missing your family. Things get a little harder. And then it goes back up to being really good. Or you might get there and like everything is really, really hard, but it gets a little better. And then you still have some of those hard days as you go along. Some experience kind of more of that, bumpy road at the start, but gradually starts to feel better until you kind of settle into your day-to-day life. Others feel like everything is really, really good for the first couple of weeks. You're doing everything, you're having a lot of fun, and then, gets a little more challenging from there. So the big point here is that everyone experiences this differently. What you want to look out for is that if you're feeling in like one of those ruts or that things aren't going great and you're feeling this longer than maybe you're comfortable with, longer than you think your friends around you are experiencing it, or you're seeing some of these signals like intense homesickness, withdrawal, sleeping a lot, physical ailments, these kind of signs to you that something is just a little off. That's when we want to know that that's not normal at that point. We would want you to reach out, and reach out can be super informal. It could be talking with a friend and maybe they're experiencing some of these same things, and it's just good to be able to chat with someone else going through something very similar. It could be talking with friends and family back home. It could be talking to staff in our office. It could be talking to staff on your program. They've been working with students for years. They know what it's like to be experiencing many of these different feelings, so they're always a great resource to talk with. Or it could be that you want to talk with a therapist while you're there, and program staff or staff in our office are happy to help arrange that for you. So just some strategies here. We talked about seeking others and you just utilizing your support network. If there's certain things that you do here at home or while you're at home that help relieve stress or just kind of keep you balanced, like exercising or keeping a journal, find a way to keep doing those sorts of things. Using that time to yourself if you need that, or if you feel like you want to be around others more, making more of those connections or times to go out. I think the minimize catastrophic thinking can be really important. When you're abroad, some little things can feel much bigger than they are. So an example that I like to think about is, here, if you were in the US or at home and you lost your phone, you'd know where to go to get a new phone. It would be annoying, but you kind of would know how to deal with it. While you're abroad, losing your phone is my one connection to my friends and family back home. This is how I was getting around while in the city. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. It can feel a lot more catastrophic than it might than if you were kind of in a familiar situation. So in those situations, just taking a step back and thinking through what you might do at home, and using those program supports that you have. So staff on the programs can do things like help you know how to get a new phone or kind of go through those steps, or always reach out to our office if you need help with that. We'll upload this to your online account, but it's just a document of some other tips of taking care of yourself. It's really basic things that sometimes can be, you don't even think about when you're having a bad day. Like, do you just need to sit down and have something to drink? Have you taken a walk? Just different ways to keep that balance in your life and take care of yourself. So when you're thinking about different cultural differences and how to maybe prepare for those, some of it is hard to do before you actually get on site, right? A lot of it is about living in that culture and experiencing it firsthand. But some things that you can do is ask your program staff about what differences to expect. What have been some differences other students have found to be the most challenging? Most programs should be doing a program orientation with you. So this is a great question to ask about, just to start to get an idea of what others have experienced before you. And if you wanted to speak directly with returnees, just ask us. If we have a current or a recent Brandeis student who's gone on a program, we're more than happy to make that connection. Sometimes if we don't have someone, we might recommend reaching out to the program because they're going to have recent returnees as well. You can also read about experiences online. So these days it's really easy to get online and see different experiences from students, from travelers, looking at YouTube videos, blogs of those that have been to the places where you're going, and just to see what those other experiences are. The only note I like to put onto that is that everyone's experiences are their own experience. So just because someone like found something really challenging to deal with in this place doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to. And also just thinking like something that they really liked, you might not like. So keeping that lens on of that their experience might not be your experience, but just to start to get an idea of what are some of those experiences and how might I react to that while I'm there can be helpful. And then some resources once you are abroad, if you are feeling some of these different shifts, or you're trying to figure out some of these cultural differences, talking with your family and friends, chatting with program staff. So maybe you notice that something is different. You're like, why is that? You could chat with your program staff because maybe they could give you a little more insight onto why something was done differently than you're used to it happening. Connect with the advisors in our office, or there are peer advisors here on campus that can talk through how they manage different cultural differences and adjusting. Or if you are finding yourself in that down rut a little bit longer than you wanted to be, or that you're comfortable with, asking to be connected with a counselor. And then we like to talk about identity because I think it's something that can, sometimes we think about these things and other times we're not thinking about it as much. But in terms of going to a new place where your identities can be impacted and perceived in different ways, we always hear students say that they wish they would have thought about this a little bit more before they had gone. So some things that you can do now is begin to think about some of the identities that you carry with you. Some of these obviously can be very visible identities and others are more invisible identities. So just thinking through what that looks like to you. And one thing you can think about here, I mean, you see some of the ones that we think about more often: racial, ethnic background, LGBTQ, socioeconomic, religious observance. But you can also think about some of these identities you might carry that you might not have thought about as much of how they'll be impacted, like being a picky eater. I'm one of those. How might those kind of smaller parts of who you are be impacted of where you're going? And some things you can do would be research communities or groups that share this identity where you're studying abroad. And if you're not sure where to start with that, ask one of us in the office. We might reach out to the program and check with them a little more. Maybe there's a community that you want to be connected with while you're abroad and you just need to know how to get started. We're happy to help with some of that research for you if we don't already know. And then, speaking with your program about supporting these identities while you're abroad. Nothing is too small to ask them. Their job is here to support you with your experience abroad. So being able to help prepare for that is really valuable to that process. And then just thinking about your identities and how they might shift or change or stay the same while you're abroad is also something to start thinking about. So are there identities that you're going to share openly with your program peers, with your host family, with your host community? Are there identities that you want to keep to yourself? Are there identities that you don't necessarily carry with you visibly here at Brandeis, but you do want to while you're abroad? This is a time where you're going to be with a new group of peers, a new host community. And so you can think about if that may change some of the identities or the ways that you want to present those identities. And again, if you want to talk further, staff in our office are always more than happy to talk. We might not always know the answer, but it's our job to help research and find that for you. And if you have any other questions about any of these topics or anything else, you can always email us at abroad@brandeis.edu or reach out to any of your study abroad advisors, and we're happy to help.